So Percy Jackson and the Olympians Season 2. Percy Jackson was my favorite book series growing up, and I was very excited when this series was announced, especially when it was announced that Riordan would be involved in the production. However, I was massively disappointed in the first season. I thought it had some good moments, but also felt very generic and was tonally inconsistent. It also made some really odd changes to the source material that I don't think 100% worked. You can check out my review of Season 1 by clicking this link right here. I was really hoping that Season 2 would be an improvement. Was it? Let's find out. Because this season's been out for a while, I will be including some major spoilers, massive spoilers for both seasons of the show, as well as both of the first two books in the novel series. Also, because I haven't read the book since I was a kid, I don't remember all the specific plot details, so I only have a loose grasp of how this season is different from the source material. All that being said, let's get into the good. So I'm just going to go right out and say I think this season is much better than the first. I think it's paced a lot better, the production value is a lot better, and it's just written so much better. Something that this season does that I really like is that there's a nice sense of forward momentum and every conflict is very clearly defined. Each episode has its own setup, progression, crescendo, and payoff. I also like the ensemble dynamic in this season way more than in Season 1. The dynamic between Percy, Grover, Annabeth, Tyson, and Clarisse is perfect. I also think that the actors have a lot better chemistry here than they did in Season 1. You can tell that they've settled into their roles a lot more. I especially want to shout out the character of Clarisse, because she is a much better character in this season than she is in the novel. She's so much more layered in this TV show and actually goes on a character arc. I love the mutual respect that forms between her and Percy, and the actress does a great job making the character nuanced. I also think the season does a great job introducing new characters. I really love the way that the series characterizes Tyson and Talia, and I think the actors that portray them do a great job. I also think that the tone of this season is a lot better than in Season 1. Season 1 just felt a little bit too kid-friendly at times, and I understand it's a Disney show, but it just still felt a little bit too juvenile. There are still a few moments in this season where it feels a little Disney, but I feel like the writers have a much better grasp of what they want this series' tone to be than in Season 1. The thing that annoyed me most about the first season of this show is how the characters would figure out what monster or creature or entity from Greek mythology they're facing before they actually have to face it. It would take away all of the suspense and the mystery from the episode. They only do that once here with Circe's Island, and I think it works because it allows the characters to figure out a plan and use her own mythos against her. Something that Season 1 did that I felt worked okay in that season was make the monsters and creatures more sympathetic. They really tried to do that with Medusa, and I feel like it worked okay, but the way that this season does it with Polyphemus works way better. Making Polyphemus intelligent makes him a much more formidable foe and adds suspense to the scenes on his island. And while I don't remember every single difference that this series makes to the source material, I think that the changes it does make actually work. It adds a lot of suspense to the series and makes the characters a lot more layered. Let's move into the mixed. I think the action in this series is okay. I think it's shot a lot better than in Season 1, but all the fight scenes still feel really short. Some of the CGI in this series is a little bit lacking. I do really like the design for all the creatures, but some of the backgrounds look a little bit artificial. I'm also mixed on the decision to skip the first few chapters of the book. I understand that they really wanted to get the story going, but I would have loved to have seen the dodgeball fight that occurs in the first chapter of the book. I'm also not really sure if I like the way that this series sets up Talia as a rival to Percy. I'll have to wait and see how Season 3 pays that off before I decide if I like that or not. I'm also mixed on the reveal that Zeus turned Talia into a tree because she didn't want to be the demigod in the prophecy. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that Greek mythology accurate Zeus is not a benevolent god by any means. But the Percy Jackson books never made him a straight-up villain. The Percy Jackson books never really characterized Zeus as being compassionate or generous in any way, but they also never really made him a straight-up villain, and this series seems to want to make Zeus a straight-up antagonist. Finally, let's move into the bad. There are a few times when the budget of this series shows. For example, we never actually get to see the characters ride the hippocampi, which I would have loved to have seen. I also wish that we would have gotten to see a greater variety of monsters rather than just the Lastagonian giants. We do get to see the birds in episode 2, and they were kind of cool, but I would have loved to have seen a greater variety of monsters, 1 on the ship and 2 in the final battle. There are also a handful of plot points that feel a little bit contrived. For example, Percy goes to Cersei one-on-one and tells her that he knows about her scam without any backup or without any plan whatsoever. He then tries to blackmail her when he's one-on-one with her, knowing full well she's a very powerful magician. I feel like he at least would have told Annabeth before he went to confront Cersei one-on-one. Also, I found it odd that Clarisse brushed off Annabeth killing her crew members even after she'd bonded with them. I understand that this is Greek mythology, so characters don't really die, they just kind of go to the afterlife, but I still felt it was odd. Another plot beat I thought was weird was that Clarisse decides to sacrifice her crew members to Charybdis instead of trying to shoot Charybdis' tentacles with her cannons on the ship. I understand it's a rock and a hard place situation, literally, because that's where the saying came from, but the fact that she just decided to sacrifice her crew members didn't really make sense to me. And last but not least, I didn't really care for the guy that played Zeus. I've always had some issues with the casting of the Greek gods in this series. I like the guy that plays Poseidon and the guy that plays Ares, and I'm more or less okay with the people that play Athena and Hephaestus and Dionysus. And don't get me wrong, I loved Lance Reddick as an actor, but he never felt right as Zeus to me. And I don't really think the guy that they get to play Zeus here feels like Zeus either. He just doesn't have the grandeur or the presence or the intimidation factor that should come from a Greek god. So overall, I thought this season was so much better than the first. It crafts some really interesting character arcs, sets up a lot of cool conflicts, and is very well paced. However, there are still a few contrived plot points, and I wish the production value was a little bit better. And I actually think that this season improves upon the book in some ways. I'm going to give it a positive review. So that's it. Those are my thoughts on Percy Jackson Season 2. What did you guys think about Percy Jackson Season 2? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to see my review of Percy Jackson Season 1, click this link right here. If you want to see more TV reviews, click this link right here. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Bye.